that would be best.
Okay, got it. Done. Okay. As a matter of fact, Jeremy, I've just made you a co-host. Did you hear? Jeremy?
Perfect. Yeah, I have everything ready for. Yep. Can you hear me okay?
Yeah, I can. You're breaking up a little bit, but it's okay. I got you now. Okay, the time is now 10:04, so I'd like to officially declare this meeting open. My name is James Brown. I serve our community as chair of the Health and Public Safety Committee. And I'm glad to see those of you that have come. Scott, good to see you. Haven't seen you in a while.
Yeah.
Thanks for coming.
Sure.
As you may know, the goal of our Health and Public Safety Committee is to help build communities and neighborhoods where each of us can feel safe and secure from crime and the fear of crime by providing the tools and guidance to help prevent and deter violence in our schools and in our neighborhoods. And to that end, we act in this way because we recognize the fact that the health and public safety is a shared responsibility, not just of us as residents and community members, but by businesses, shareholders, nonprofit organizations. Is a shared Public safety is a shared responsibility, particularly in light of the recent January 6th insurrection attempts on our nation's capital. I think it showed us that there's a lot that's going on in our country, from the insurrectionist activities that we saw on January the 6th to homegrown threats of terrorism that we've seen take place in various cities across the country. So that tells me that 2021 is going to be a challenging year for us. And so it was to that end that I invited senior lead officers from each of the LAPD basic car areas to attend our meetings. Hold on just a second. To attend our meeting this morning to talk about things that are going on in their areas, and to be able to tell us things that they may have in common from one patrol area to another. Now, keep in mind, we have what are called basic car areas. And so, Jeremy, if you would, you have a map that shows the basic car areas.
Yeah, let me pull
in the
that up
area.
here.
So we'll put that up. Because a lot of people don't know who's responsible for sharing, who's responsible for various areas. And so just recently, West Valley LAPD reorganized their basic car areas. And the basic car simply refers to an area that's assigned by a senior lead officer. And on that map that you see, one big change that you'll note is that Officer Fuentes has been assigned to the Reseda basic car areas to share that area with Officer Bocanegra. Officer Bocanegra has been by himself operating in the Reseda area for almost 2 years now. So I know he welcomes the partnership with Officer Fuentes, while we in Lake Balboa lament over the fact that we've lost Officer Fuentes from the Lake Balboa area. We are nonetheless pleased to welcome a new senior lead officer, as you see over there at the corner right, Officer Sam Park. And each of those basic car areas you'll see that are cordoned off, I mean, not cordoned off, but highlighted, as you can see there, from Van Nuys, that's assigned to Officer Park, to the rest of Lake Balboa, that's assigned to Officer Smith, who, by the way, is on loan to another division right now, so she has not returned, but is expected to do so. You see below there, you see Officer Warlia, who is in charge of the basic car area for Encino. And you see Officer Scoggins, who is in charge of the basic car area for for, 1 second. Basic car area for Tarzana. So you see those individuals that are there. We are now joined by, I see we're joined by
Scott. Trying to get
Officer
set up.
Fuentes and Officer Bocanegra have joined us. And so that's good. But as I was saying, the reason why I've asked these senior lead officers to join us this morning is because I recognize the fact that each of the basic car areas may have different characteristics in terms of the makeup of those basic car areas, which is obvious, and in terms of the various problems that each of the basic car areas may exhibit. What goes on in one basic car area may not be a characteristic of, for example, between Reseda and Lake Balboa, between Tarzana and Encino. Each of those areas may have different sets of problems. But one thing, there may be a common thread that is characteristic of each of the basic car areas. So I've asked the senior lead officers to speak to us this morning, not just involving hints and tips as to keep us safe or safer that we want to be, but also to talk about things that they advise that we be on the lookout for in our basic car areas. All right, Jeremy, you can go ahead and delete that flyer, that map. Cool. All right. I'd like to ask the senior lead officers to go ahead and unmute yourself. Oscar, you can unmute yourself. Or do I need to do that for you?
No.
Okay. Good morning, officers. Good morning, Officer Scoggins, Officer Fuentes.
Good morning.
Thank you for joining us this morning. As I was saying, I explained to the panel that you guys were involved in the investigation this morning of the shooting up at Sherman Way at the high school. I don't know if that involved you, Officer Bocanegra, but I'm glad to see that you're there. In case you didn't hear what I asked for before, a lot of people in our community, whether it be Reseda, Tarzana, Encino, Lake Balboa, don't know who their senior lead officers are. And so this particular forum provides the opportunity for them not only to meet and speak with you, but also to hear from you in terms of ideas that you would advise residents in your area to be on the lookout for. We know that there's a common thread that may exist from the basic car area to basic car area, but nonetheless, there may be some characteristics in your basic car areas that make it different from others. So I'd like for you to go into that, talking about what you recommend for your community residents, and don't hesitate to raise your hand. At the bottom of the screen, you'll see a raise hand icon. So anyone who wishes to speak, please raise your hand and I'll call on you for that reason. Officer Scoggins, are you there?
Yeah, I'm here.
Oh, okay.
Hey, James, we're having really poor Wi-Fi here at the office, so that's why Boca is frozen now. So we're trying to get a better location for us to move. So we're gonna go ahead and share one tablet. My tablet, for some reason, is not turning on our camera, so we're having technical difficulties this morning.
But we're here.
But we're here. We're all here.
Oh, well, good. Great. Again, welcome, gentlemen. I started off this before you got on. I started off by also saying that we recognize the fact that health and public safety is a shared responsibility of all of us, whether we be private citizens, residents, community members, but it also involves businesses, nonprofit organizations, any of those entities that make up a particular area. We all are responsible for public safety in those areas. And recognizing that is critical if we are going to face the challenges that we are going to be facing this year. We know that there's been an uptick in crime in various areas. Other areas show an increase in car thefts, et cetera. But I think that based on your experience, what do you feel differentiates your basic car areas from others, and if you think that there are common characteristics that other areas may benefit knowing about. So I'd like to call on each of you individually to speak on that topic, and I see Officer Bocanegra there. Officer, would you like to start us off?
Boca?
What was the question? I'm had a hard time with this volume.
You go. Mark.
Put yours on mute.
Okay, any of the officers that can hear me?
Sorry. Yeah, sorry. We're dealing with new laptops or new tablets that they gave us, so it's a big mess here. Yeah, like you said, each area is a little different. For the most part, here in the Valley, we've always had a big problem with property crime, right? So in the Valley, it's property crime for the most part, and it's not the crime against person that South LA sees most of the time. Although we have seen an uptick in aggravated assaults, like I've said in the past, and shootings, if I'm not mistaken. And we just came from a shooting in the area of Sherman Way and Haskell that we were assisting patrol with. So when we left to join the meeting, the suspect was in custody. There were no hits, no victims hit, but they were still searching for the gun. And that was at the homeless encampment by the freeway, which is the responsibility of Caltrans. But they are also having difficulties cleaning up these encampments, just like us, just like LA County is having the difficulties, just like us, LA City, with all these groups suing the city and suing for homeless rights, which makes it a little bit more difficult to be able to clean up the encampments or to do anything with them. This is Officer Scoggins.
Hey everybody, I'm Darrell Scoggins. I'm the senior lead for Tarzana. Yeah, I mean my area is completely different as well. My biggest combat that I handle is my area's the houses there are multi-million-dollar homes, so they get targeted for home burglaries, which is tough right now during the pandemic because most people were at home. So we get a lot of hot prowls where the people are still trying to break in where the people are home. So for my area, we do educate a lot in regards to, hardening the target and what to watch out for. And of course, the biggest thing is reporting it to us because a lot of people won't even report, or they get a suspicious person or someone on their property who at first is going to break in but decides not to, because then more than likely they determine that somebody is home and they go to leave, and then people don't even report that this person is on their property, which is tough. And just last week we had an instance where that, and their cameras caught the person and actually cracked the case and leads to an arrest of this guy who's been doing a lot of burglaries. So that's what goes on in the Tarzana.
I see. Well, thank you very much for that. Any other officers there? I don't see.
Yeah, it's I'm here. I'm Officer Bocanegra out of West Valley. You guys know that Officer Fuentes is my new partner over in Reseda, and as of these last month and a half, I've had more shootings in the area of Reseda, mostly around like Reseda Park, Winona, Netawanda, Darby. These are younger kids who are actually carrying out shootings amongst each other. This last, and then one was unfortunately a kind of like a Meals on Wheels delivery guy. Ended up getting stabbed for trying to get some food from the delivery driver. Ended up robbing, taking his his wallet and his phone. So Reseda has had more, and it was also gang related in regards to that. I think a lot of that is because of what COVID has brought upon really our youth. We don't have the same programs available for them because everything's closed. You have a lot of kids who are by themselves when their folks are working away from home. So there's a lot of folks who, especially in the community of Reseda, who don't have the luxury of doing the distance working or the Zooming or whatever it may be. And they're by themselves all day in regards to that. So there is no, in my own personal life, like my kids don't play any baseball, any soccer, nothing's going on. There's nothing going on at the parks. The gang interventionists aren't out because of COVID. So that is one thing where we're seeing this year in regards in Reseda. As far as Lake Balboa,
Lake Balboa is what I've spoken to you in the past. It's a lot of the property crime. And a lot of our calls and a lot of our crime originally started happening around the airtel. And I've spoken about that in the past. The airtel right now was extended to April 15th. They're not accepting any more tenants. The only problem is that the California was giving a lot of funds through FEMA specifically for the room key program. So I don't know how that is going to affect the airtel. I don't know with that new money how they're gonna, if there's gonna be a larger extension or something else. I know that other room key locations have been extended till September. So I wouldn't be surprised if that happened at the airtel.
In Reseda, we're having, this is off spoken again, we're having these cabin housing. We have 50 units coming out right behind the station. And we're gonna have about 70 plus more over there by the Orange Line in Reseda. So they should have been breaking ground last November, but they haven't. I know they've done some connecting, but in regards to the cabin community, what I've seen at the Airtel and at the Hojo, because the Hojo on the Howard Johnson's hotel, the city bought that. So that's another room key, project room key in Reseda. When someone leaves or someone acts up in regards to the rules and policies that they have at the project room key, they either get kicked out or they move them along or they have to leave. And a lot of times is they plant roots to where they're at. And so they have another room available. So this is citywide. So they would bring any other person who is willing to take the resources, and they bring them to wherever that cabin may be, or maybe the room key. So I've noticed more homeless people that aren't typically familiar with the valley because they're throughout the city. So my only concern is we're bringing in more people who are not from the valley, and just creating more of a bigger population of our homeless community to these certain spots. Mainly Reseda and the Airtel, but if the Airtel has stopped taking more people in, so that'd be good. I mean, they wouldn't have to bring more people into the area. Again, that's kind of like they get kicked out, they plant their roots, and they bring someone else, and it's kind of like the cycle that I've seen. Because if you guys driven down Sherman Way between Etowanda and, I don't know this is like Balboa, but between Sherman Way on Etowanda and Lindley, I used to have 2 tents on the sidewalk. Now it's 7, and it's just going to keep growing. There's a lot of factors there regarding that. I mean, I have a methadone clinic, and I have recycling centers there, and big sidewalks that they're able to camp out.
Well, officers, I know that you're aware of the fact that the city council right now is discussing making changes to Council File 20-1376 /4118 that has to do with dictating when and where homeless individuals can sleep on public property. I know that's been stuck in committee. They are looking to cast some sort of vote on that probably sometime during this first quarter. Up to that point in time, I mean, do any of you officers see any change in the way that LAPD might handle homeless individuals in encampments?
No, that whole obligation is going to LASA and sanitation. In regards to dealing with that social crisis. It was, if you guys knew, that there was a big push of us not even trying to get involved until there's an actual crime. So
with the 4118, if they do any changes to that, I've seen plans, for example, what they want to do and what they're planning for the 8502s, that was the vehicle dwelling.
Right.
I know that council asked DOT to make plans, and this is not permanent, but I've seen the preliminary plans. And what that states is that they want what the city has been wanting for a long time, and to lead with resources. Now, when those resources don't work, they want us to come in as a police department and enforce, which I don't think that's going to work, because LASA is not a type of, from my experience, LASA is not a type of organization that's going to tell the police department, hey, this guy is not accepting the help, go ahead and enforce the rules of the road, or impound his vehicle. They're not going to do that. So they want LASA to make the determination first. And when there is nothing they can do, then they want us as a police department to come in. If we don't have the communication now, we're not going to have the communication then. And this is from my personal experience. LASA and family housing, unfortunately, it has been very difficult to communicate with and to work with. And one prime example is the Airtel. The Airtel is run by family housing. Security is run by homeless authority, which makes it difficult when you have county and you have city running one spot, and they both point fingers at each other. When officers went to the Airtel, and just for a regular call of service, a domestic, let's say, between two partners in a room, we were stopped and asked if we had a search warrant, which is unacceptable. But that's the type of relationship that we have with them. They just don't really want to deal with us. And that's the honest truth. So any type of program that leads with resources from LASA and family housing, and then we have to come in after, I got to tell you, it's not going to happen. And that's the way the city is going to go. And that's their plan. And I think that's why the department's direction now is homelessness is a social policy issue. And our chief has said that in the past. It's not a police department issue. And I think that's their stand. I know that I've spoken about this at the Lake Balboa meeting, about how changes to our response to a lot of the radio calls, communication starting January 7th. And then the chief had a big meeting about this. We're not responding to drinking in public. We're not responding to personal drug use, to sales or anything like that. They want everybody to be referred to LA Crime Stoppers, and then they will be investigated at a later time by the appropriate unit. And that's because we're also having a problem with minimums, with deployment. We can't keep minimums with patrol. So they want to keep those officers available for those life-saving emergencies, and to keep those response times down. So we'll see. I mean, it's going to be an interesting year with everything. I know that we have a quarterly meeting with council members, and they've said that they want to get a little bit more proactive in these policies and these laws to be able to clean up the city. But we'll see. We'll see what their plan is, and we'll see where we fall within their plan.
Well, up to this point in time, until better arrangements are made in terms of the types of responsibilities that are going to be taken on by various agencies like LASA and other agencies, the onus, as always, has always fallen on LAPD. Who are you going to call at 10 o'clock in the morning? I'm sorry, at 2 o'clock in the morning to handle a incidents of violence. So until better arrangements are made, it's going to continue to follow an LAPD. Now, just recently, the Chief Moore announced that the LAPD has agreed to a plan with respect to nonviolent domestic disputes, has agreed to a plan to allow health department officials to lead into that area and only have a police officer present in the background, And I'm talking about nonviolent incidents. Gentlemen, officers, have you heard anything about that? I just read this morning on the news. Is this something that you've heard about as well?
Not for domestics. I've heard, we've heard for mental issues, people with mental illness. Not for domestics. Have you guys ever heard anything for domestic? No, we haven't heard anything about that yet.
Okay. Right now, I know that in the Reseda area, Officer Fuentes and Officer Bocanegra, you guys have the fewest numbers of homeless individuals of any of the council districts. This is why Council Member Blumenfield was able to go ahead and begin construction on the cabin communities behind his office. He did it on public property. Just imagine what he would have gone through. It had been on private property, but he did it on public property. And this is in response to Judge Carter's demand, telling the city of LA that before we can do anything with respect to telling the homeless where they can live and at what times that they can live and where they can sleep and at what times they can sleep, before we can do anything, we have to provide housing for these individuals. This is why a lot of communities have begun these cabin communities, both in North Hollywood as well as in Reseda. There are other places that are going to crop up, but it's going to happen. And so even though we are all living in a NIMBY type of atmosphere, this is something that we have to do. Now, right now, Section 4118 has been declared by the Ninth Circuit Court of Appeals as in violation of the Constitution in reference to cruel and unusual punishment, whereby it in fact criminalizes homelessness. And so the Ninth Circuit Court of Appeals said that's unconstitutional. And so until these scenarios are worked out, we're going to continue to face incidents regarding the homeless. This is something that is a challenge, and it will remain a challenge for I don't know how long, until we can get housing under control. Do any of you, let me also ask the officers this question. With regard to homelessness, Officer Scoggins, if yes, you're there, Officer Scoggins, what type of problems do you see with homelessness in the Tarzana area that you are responsible for?
Well, a lot of times, the homeless will actually go out and break into cars to get their next drug high. They also do a lot of the shopliftings from the different supermarkets and the businesses along Ventura Boulevard.
What do you advise community members to do when confronted by homeless individuals, whether it be where we live, in our parks, places of business? What do you advise the best course of action for community members and average citizens?
The biggest thing, people always feel bad for them, and just hand them money. I'm all for helping the homeless. The best way to help them, though, is actually through charitable organizations that will have food banks and have like Hope of the Valley, where they can go get showers and clothing. So donate your money that way. The ones that are on the street are just panhandling, or the ones that you see all they're gonna do is go buy drugs with that money. I've done many research when they're panhandling on the freeway and people come and sit there and just watch them. People will come up and give them food. They just throw it away. They don't want that. They want the money so they can go buy their drugs. So I'm all for helping them, but please try to do it in a responsible manner where, one, you can use it as a tax write-off, and second, you're helping the ones that truly need and want the help.
Great advice. Great advice. Do you other senior leads agree with that?
Yeah, absolutely. Just to give you an example, Officer Scoggins had a homeless individual who had a train of shopping carts. I think he had about 10 of them, 10 shopping carts full of property.
You probably have seen this individual. Usually he hung out on Burbank underneath the 101 freeway there. He probably had 13, 14 shopping carts. Very nice guy. His family actually lives south in the hills. He refused help for many years. And I would talk to him almost every day when I saw him. Very nice guy. And so I asked him, why does he have so many shopping carts? And he says, because people keep on just giving me stuff and I don't want to throw it away. So he would have shopping cart after shopping cart of stuff that people keep on giving him. And he goes, I don't even want this stuff. But to tell you the truth, this guy finally, after all these years, actually took the help.
That's good to hear. Anyone else have any comment about that?
I know, Officer Bocanera had to leave. He just joined another meeting. But yeah, I just echoing what Officer Scoggins said. I know that it feels good just helping, but it's just better to help an organization. A lot of these people are using the money not for what you want them to use it for. And yeah, I've seen a lot of the homeless just throw away the food that you give them. They're not really interested in that.
Well, that's interesting to hear, because you started off by saying that when we see these homeless individuals at off ramps, et cetera, we feel sorry. And number of cars that are there at a stoplight just before they make that turn are handing money to these individuals. And even though we know that they probably won't will go out and buy drugs, it's just something appealing to human nature. So I applaud you for indicating it's better to give to an agency that would make better use of the funds than by handing it directly to the homeless individual. I appreciate that comment.
And you,
Yes.
can I add one more thing, Mr.
Yeah.
Brown?
Yes.
So seeing them on the freeway, and a lot of people would see a pet, a dog, or some type of animal, and so then people feel sorry for that particular animal, which is true. But 90% of the time, that animal does not belong to them. They actually will rent their animal out to other homeless individuals and take a cut of the money, because either a female or a person with an animal will tend to get more money. So they actually rent that animal out.
Wow. I had no idea. Thank you for that. I see Ruth Doxey has a question. Ruth? You'll unmute.
Hello, yes. We have a problem with a person in the Sepulveda Basin Wildlife Area that he's a homeless guy. I think he's a veteran. He's the one that set many fires. He keeps digging up the native plants that they put in and planting his own plants. And
Is this the one on Victory by Odessa, man?
possibly. He says he lives in in a tree or something in the wildlife area, or they didn't.
Okay. We recently went over to the encampments on, let's see, Burbank, south of Burbank, between Hiyelty Sports Park and Woodley. You know that area?
Yes.
Yes.
Perfect. So we went there about a couple weeks ago. We went there with LASA, City Council, and Sanitation. We encountered 6 individuals. None of them wanted to help. 2 large encampments and 1 tent. they were warned that sanitation was gonna begin cleaning. Um, and, but again, all of them refused the help. Sanitation has not cleaned yet because there's a lot of hurdles that need to be overcome before any type of cleaning. And that's with the lawsuits and all that good stuff. Now, there's another individual on Victory and Odessa. He keeps cutting the trees. He cost approximately $50,000 damage to the trees.
Yes.
Yes, so he also attacked two firemen and chased one fireman with a hatchet. He was arrested for that. He was out within 24 hours. So then we went back and we arrested him for the vandalism of the $50,000. During the arrest, we had one individual that stopped his car and started filming us as an advocate for homelessness. So it makes it very difficult. It makes it very difficult. And I understand they don't know the circumstances of this arrest, but you have to see what challenges that we have. So he stopped, he filmed the whole thing. He was there for the individual, for the homeless. He was arrested. I got a text the very next morning from one of my patrol units that he was back out and then at the same spot. So it's difficult for us to be able to keep him in jail. He refuses any type of homeless resources, and we don't have the beds for any type of mental illness. So what do you do with this type of individual? They'll just come back within 30 minutes, be back doing the same thing. And that's one of those things. There has to be a better plan.
Yes.
And it's not going to be us. It's not going to be enforcement. It has to be some type of social program. And I know all these social programs and the social unarmed social response, it was a big thing that they spoke about last year, but where is it? I want to see it. It's been a year now. Where is it?
Well,
Thank you.
thank you for that. This has been a major issue that revolves around a reduction in the police budget. Chief Moore said early on that he doesn't have any problem with taking away some of the responsibilities that LAPD currently faces. But how do you take away the responsibilities without putting something in place to handle them? I believe it was you, Officer Fuentes, that told me that effective on February 13th, the HOPE team is no longer in operation, and a number of those individuals working on the HOPE teams have been reassigned. Is that HOPE?
Yes, that's correct. So the HOPE team was reassigned. It was eliminated and was reassigned to patrol duty. So we don't
You should
have
have
those
walked
anymore.
away and not told me what was going on. I thought you were giving me those pancakes. No, it shouldn't. I think they could all be from.
Go
Hello,
ahead.
can you hear me?
Yes, go right ahead.
Okay, so yes, the HOPE unit was was taken away from us. They are back on patrol. The two individuals that were somewhat helping us are back with us. We were hoping that we would have them as an extra car to be able to work the same problem, but the department wants them on patrol to help the patrol officers. So yeah, they're gone. Unfortunately, I feel that a lot of that responsibility is going to fall on us as a senior lead officer. So that's going to be another thing that we're going to be busy with, and we're not going to. This is my feeling that we're not going to be able to be available to do what we were designed to do. That community outreach, those neighborhood watch meetings, those targeted things that we can identify where the crime is, and just stuff like that. We're that's just another thing that we're going to be able to be that they're going to take us away from.
Gotcha. You are absolutely right. Because that led into my next question, and that is, in light of the reduction of police budget, how are your duties are going to be reassigned? I think you just mentioned one aspect. I know Jeremy and I are on a committee, neighborhood watch committee, that we're looking to have Lake Balboa council members that live in various areas to actually host neighborhood watch meetings via Zoom. And so that's something that I think we still are going to look to do in the future, because I think that's important, as I led from the outset, because it's all part of the sharing of responsibilities that we all have. We can't just depend on LAPD to solve all the crimes and to solve all of the ills that we all face in our communities. But it takes a community effort, then we're going to have to continue to do just that. In terms of service requests officers, in light of the reduction in budget and so forth, I know that West Valley is still closed, as is other stations. Any updates in terms of when West Valley might reopen to accept community members coming in? What do you think about that?
Well, the station's not closed due to budget. It's due to the pandemic.
Yes.
Yeah, so as soon as the mayor allows us to open it, we're ready to open it. We already have the partitions ready. We still man it the desk now for officers to actually take reports and stuff like that. So it's not like it's a manning problem, because we're manning it now. So as soon as the mayor lets us open it, it's going to be back open.
Good.
So,
I see Sharon Brewer has her hand up. Sharon?
Hi, I have two questions. I was wondering about, obviously, the homeless person that has done major damage, $50,000, and attacked people and stuff like that, and then is out. Is Gaston's directives have anything to do with it? Also, when it comes to the homeless on the sidewalk where they are blocking the required ADA distance, is there a way of somehow maybe putting a line or something so that the homeless understand that they can be there, but this space has to be available for because of ADA compliance? Thank you.
That was a good question. Do any of you officers have an answer to that?
so let me tackle the ADA compliancy first. A lot of the ADA compliancy is being done by enforcement, is being done by sanitation. Sanitation is the one that goes out there and lets these people know, hey, you have to have the 3 feet, right? The 3 feet continuous path. Either they clean it, or sanitation will ask them what they want to throw away to be able to clear that path. As far as the line and stuff like that, I mean, we go out there all the time and tell these people, hey, you have to leave this 3-foot path. A line is not going to do anything. A person with a mental illness or on any type of narcotics, they don't really, they're just going to throw everything wherever they want. As far as the individual on causing damage to the trees, yeah, I mean, the new policies that DA Gascon has implemented with any type of enhancements or anything like that, I don't think that fell into that individual. What did fall into that individual was the no bail. There is no bail for any type of these crimes. They're considered non-violent property crime, no matter what the amount is. The one with the hatchet, the attack that he did, that one they're still looking at. So I'm not really sure about that one, but hitting, it was just a simple battery on the fire department. So that's really not violent. And like I said, the vandalism is not violent. But let me give you another example. And I'm sure, because I've gotten a lot of calls about this, about an individual in Lake Balboa who was being talked about in next door. And this was an individual that was in the area of Havenhurst and Saticoy, between Saticoy and I would say Van Noen, west of Havenhurst. This individual was going around the neighborhood trespassing, which is really nothing now, and doing other minor things that wasn't enough for us to be able to detain him, arrest him, or keep him in jail. And the only reason why we're able to do anything, it was because he did a home invasion. So where he knocked on the door, the homeowner opened the door, he pushed her and was dragging her inside. She screamed, some neighbors heard her, and it caused him to run away. So he was arrested for that. Due to the new policies, all those enhancements were declined. So he was not charged with home invasion. He was charged with burglary. Now, what is burglary? A non-violent property crime. So this is the challenges that we're having. Everything. So a lot of our felonies before have been were dropped to misdemeanors with Prop 47, Prop 57. And now with a lot of new policies, even those misdemeanors are infractions. Like I told you in the past, I've given tickets for drugs and fentanyl. Fentanyl, the one with the most dangerous drugs out there. So these are and because it's a personal use of a narcotic, it's seen as a mental issue now. So it's not gonna. I don't know how much of that is gonna be prosecuted. I'm sure almost nothing. The courts don't have the authority or the system now to be able to force anybody into any type of rehab. And we can't keep them in jail. So what they're gonna do is they're just gonna stay in jail just for that booking time, maybe 30 minutes, a couple hours. The records come back and they're just gonna be released again. Not only that, but then before we were able to swab a lot of our felony crimes, and narcotics was under our felony crimes. A lot of our property crime is caused by our narcotic suspects being able to score that money for the next hit. Since that fell into a misdemeanor, we're not able to swab anymore. A lot of these crimes were sold by DNA. A lot of them were. But since we're not able to swab these crimes, we don't have those samples that we're taking in. So it's going to be a little bit more difficult for us. All of these are unintended consequences that come with it. I know that a lot of people complain sometimes, this is the biggest complaint that I have. I called officers for a guy doing drugs in front of my house. They never came. But as you know, Mr. Brown, we have to come. There has to be a disposition for that call. But that narcotics crime now falls to the bottom of the stack because it's not a crime. It's a ticket. So the department is not going to see that as they want you to respond to that emergency call first before responding to that crime. So we do get there, but we get there maybe 2 to 3 hours. It might be 2 to 3 hours later, and the individual doesn't see the police officer there. So they think, hey, they never came. They don't care. And that's not true. We do care, but it's just the way things are now. That's an unintended consequence of all these propositions.
Well, thank you for that. And you just hit on a key point that I've heard a number of community members comment about, and that is not seeing an officer in a timely enough fashion once a call has been placed. By the time the police arrive, the perpetrator is GOA, meaning gone on arrival. And so the property owner thinks that the police didn't show up because they didn't see them in a timely enough fashion. One of the things that's happening right now is the fact that a number of city attorneys are pushing back and have pushed back against District Attorney Garcon because of the policies and the changes in the law that he's undertaken. I know the LA Times did a great article on that, how the district attorneys are refusing to prosecute certain cases because the tools, forgive me for getting upset about this, because the tools that they have been taken away seemingly by Garcon. And so what Officer Fuentes was talking about is true. Officer Fuentes. The question then is, in light of all these changes, what should community members do to get this situation changed? What do community members like Gary Kay, Ruth Doxey, Scott, Mickey Lloyd do, Sherry Brewer, and Donna? What do we do in order to draw attention to the harm that's being caused by changing in these laws? What should a community member do?
My biggest thing, and like I always say in every meeting, is get involved. And I know that especially Lake Balboa, man, you guys are great. You know, Gary, I mean, everybody's really involved, which I really loved about Lake Balboa. Going and especially now that it's really easy because all of these meetings are on Zoom. So you can log on to the council meetings on Zoom and be involved in that way, because all these meetings are being attended by people, special interest groups, who go over there and scream and dictate what happens in your neighborhood. Just to give you an example, about a year and a half ago, this is when 8502, the vehicle dwelling law, was going to be extended, and the council members were thinking of not extending it. So I put the word out there, and a lot of Lake Balboa individuals went over to downtown and participated in this meeting. And it made a huge difference because I was watching it live, and there was a special interest group person there, and I forgot, it was he or she commented that she couldn't believe that so many people from the valley had attended the meeting, and she was very disappointed. You guys made the difference, and guess what? They got it extended. So the council members need to hear that balance of citizens that speak up for their communities. A lot of these people I've heard from, and I'm not gonna say who, but I've heard from council members that the people that they hear all the time in these meetings don't even live in your city. They're just advocates. So when they ask them, so where do you live? Malibu, Woodland Hills, Ventura County. So what are you doing here? What do you know, so they're just advocates who are dictating what happens in LA. So it's just that getting involved. And one other interesting point that I heard our new Deputy Chief Hamilton, bring up, I think it was during CPAV, James.
Yes.
Is that start talking to your neighbors, be more aware, because once COVID starts dying down and people start returning to work, and we see a lot more people away from their houses, away from their cars, we're going to start seeing the huge rise in crime. And it's just a crime that it was before coming back, but because of that spike, it's going to be a huge spike in crime. And that's what they're, so start talking, and I'm guilty of this. I really don't talk to my neighbors, and it's because of my profession that I don't want anybody to know what I do. But yeah, just talking to your neighbors, being more aware and having that communication.
You're absolutely right, and I appreciate that comment because that answers a number of questions I was going to bring up that I was asked to ask you officers. I started off this meeting by talking about how there's a common thread that seems to go from basic car area to basic car area in terms of certain types of problems, and which you guys have talked about this morning. We've asked you questions about homeless. We've asked you questions about dumping and so forth. And we've asked you the most important question, what should we do as community members in order to turn things around? And you've just answered that, Officer Fuentes, and I appreciate that. But another thing that we should think about doing is actually going online to the city council website so that we can actually look up council files that they are discussing, and we can actually make a public comment in writing under those council files. And so that in and of itself is really, really critical that we let the city council know what we are thinking. To that point, I see Scott has his hand up. Scott.
Yeah, I have a couple questions. Number one is Nuri still president of the city council?
Yes. Yes,
Okay, well, she should be locally very interested in our opinions on things, I would think.
but we have to let her know.
Yeah. And second thing is, talking to neighbors is a little bit problematic. I mean, people are so isolated, particularly during the pandemic. Is there a way to leverage the use of Nextdoor to get access to people and tell them what's going on and that kind of thing? I mean, have anybody used that as a strategy?
I would say I do.
Yeah, yeah.
As one individual, I know that Officer Fuentes has done that. I know that Officer Walia has posted things, as well as things that are coming out of West Valley, things that neighbors should be aware of. I sent Jeremy some flyers this morning on package theft and catalytic converters. Jeremy, if you don't mind, if you could post the one regarding package theft just briefly so that folks can see this. But to your point, Scott, yes, we should be talking about this on Nextdoor, because there's a lot of people that are on Nextdoor. And you know, one of the things that I've noticed, and that is when they go to report something, a crime or an incident that's occurred in the neighborhood, they don't bother about giving a description, although that's getting it slightly better than it has been. They don't bother about giving a description, and they don't say where it's occurred. And with that being said, not only is it important to be able to give a description regarding the incident that's occurred, whether it be a package theft or anything else, but it's important to be able to contact your senior lead officer before you do that. And I say that because these people that perpetrate these crimes read Nextdoor too. And so if we can give the police a description of the perpetrator of a particular crime and have them begin to look for that individual, then that gives them a head start in helping to solve that crime. Thank you for doing that, Jeremy. So that's just one of the, you see these kinds of posts that appear on Nextdoor that come out from West Valley. Speaking of West Valley, one of the other areas to get involved in is with West Valley LAPD. Jeremy, you can go ahead, there you go. Is with West Valley LAPD. Every month we hold a community police advisory board meeting. And when you blow all that smoke away, all it is a meeting whereby community members can talk to station leaders, can talk to the senior lead officers, can get information from various speakers that we have at the meeting. For example, last month we had the new commander of Valley Division, and Valley Division consists of 7 police stations here in the San Fernando Valley. And just as a quick trivia question, how many people live in the San Fernando Valley? Anybody? Does anyone know?
A million?
Close, Scott. 2 million. 2 million.
Okay. I was only one off.
One off. But there are 2 million and only 2,000 police officers in that area. Mm-hmm. And so there are 33 square miles that represent the West Valley Division, from the 405 over to Corbin, and from Mulholland north to Roscoe. And so that's the West Valley Division, and that's 33 square miles. That's a lot of people and not a number of officers. And now what with the pullback in terms of budget, in terms of not hiring in LAPD, reallocating resources, the onus falls upon us as residents, again, to get that word out. Use media like Nextdoor, but be smart about it. If you're going to report a crime, don't just say somebody ripped me off. Again, be a little bit more specific. If you can get a description of the individual, do so. Post that, because they read Nextdoor as well. So to answer, hopefully that answers your question, Scott, in terms of what we can do. But again, we can also, and I think this is probably more important, to post a public notice on the LA City Council website under public comment. You can actually go in, take a look at a file that they are discussing, and you can write a public comment anonymously if you'd like, You can write a public comment and all city council members get it. And everyone that goes on the city website gets it. So that's a very, very powerful tool. You know, one of the council members, not council members, neighborhood council members asked me, is this a next door meeting? And I said, no, this is not a next door meeting. This is not for that. We will be doing that later on. But this is something because too many people don't know who their senior lead officers are, what they should be looking for, and how they can respond, and what our responsibilities are. But the bottom line is this: it all falls on us as residents, community members, and stakeholders. It all falls on us to take responsibility for what happens in our neighborhood. The police, particularly now, don't know what's going on in our neighborhood unless we tell them. Years ago, for example, I was what was called at that time a police community representative. And this was before neighborhood watch block captains and things of that nature. And I had an idea because I saw things that were happening where I live here on Andersall. I saw things that were happening were spilling over into other streets. And I knew that if I didn't do anything about it or let people know about it, it was going to grow out of hand. And so I got a bunch of guys together, and we formulated a schedule whereby each one of us would take turns throughout a particular day and early evening patrolling various areas. And so lo and behold, years later, fast forward, we have what's called a volunteer community patrol. You've probably seen those white city marked BMWs that cruise various neighborhoods. Every police division here in the Valley has a volunteer community patrol, which is a unit, an official unit of LAPD that consists of trained volunteers like me and the others that represent that group, consists of trained, unpaid, unpaid volunteers who volunteer our time and energies to patrol various assigned areas that have been given to us when we report for duty. Every week, we see a schedule that is put out by the volunteer coordinator that lets us know what the days are and the time. And so we simply plug into those days and times when we are available to report for duty. We are uniformed, we have police radios that we utilize, and our responsibilities are simply to patrol and report things that are going on in various assigned areas. And so as a result of that, at least here in West Valley, we've been told that it has resulted in a reduction in certain types of crimes. And I dare say that the same probably has been true for other areas as well. But it also helps LAPD to better allocate their resources, because you heard Officer Fuentes talk about, we can't expect the same kind of service as we are used to, because they don't have the manpower to do it. Number two, they've been reassigned various areas. And so the onus falls on us to share in that responsibility for our own safety, particularly now when we've got outside extremist groups that are making their will be known. And believe me, that is going to grow in 2021. But I started off by talking about the Community Police Advisory Board as a means to let your feelings be known to the police, to hear various public speakers that we have in from the deputy chief to other surprise guests that we'll be having in the future. We will be having council members like Bloomingfield. We've already had him. We will be having other council members like Nuri Martinez come in again to speak to us, our community groups. And so our next meeting is Wednesday, March 10th, I believe, at 6 p.m. You'll see a notification on that being posted. And so we are looking to have a guest speaker from downtown to talk about various anti-terrorist activities that are taking place throughout the city, and terrorist acts that are taking place in the city. We can expect that to happen. That's not going to diminish. Um, I sort of strayed off schedule, off the agenda item, and I wanted to talk about and ask if anyone has a public comment. We got started slightly late this morning, but does anyone have a public comment to make? Okay, I've got a couple. Yeah.
I got something. I just, whenever I see cops, I want to make sure that they know how much we appreciate their being here. I'm so worried about the erosion of the police because of this craziness that's going on with who's in charge, the DA, it's unbelievable. And I've talked to a couple, and one of them's getting out as soon as he can, and the other one's just hunkering down and trying to stay safe for his daughters. I want to thank those officers that are on this call, because it's really kind of, they're handing us a lifeline, I think, of expectation that things will persevere. But is there anything that they can tell me about the erosion of the morale among the police? I also heard that Beverly Lewis is no longer a commandant, or
Well, she's retired.
yeah, but she kind of forced retired, right? Or she was really disappointed about a non-promotion, or what?
Yeah, I wouldn't be able to comment on that,
Right.
but I've heard things along that, yes,
Along that line, yeah.
yeah, along that line. So is the erosion?
Well, it's not fair for me to ask on the call, maybe, but when I talk to officers, that's what I find out. I like
Right.
Beverly. And
Yeah, no, she was a very good captain, very good
Yeah.
captain for us.
Yeah.
Very personable, very approachable.
mhm.
If we had a problem, her door was always open to us. So we as officers we really appreciate that.
Yeah.
As far as the erosion of officers, I mean, the morale, as you can imagine, it's pretty low. And and it's me and James and I, we spoke about the morale, especially when during and after the riots, James.
Yes.
We spoke about it. My morale was down. I can only speak for myself. It was down, especially when we had, I think, 2 or 3 weekends of constant protest in front of our station, and just hearing the cars honk for 10 hours straight. And I took it personal. I'm not gonna lie. I mean, this is a community that I've worked for and helped for the last 11 years. And hearing all those horns, it hurt. But at the same time, we do have the support. I know we get it all the time when we're driving down the street, and we get the thumbs up, the thank yous, the
Mhm.
waves, and that helps a lot. Believe me, it helps a lot.
Yeah.
Just
hope
kind of
so.
stopping and thanking, we really appreciate that, especially especially the young cops who have 1-2 years on, that all they know is this. It raises their spirits. We have lost a lot of officers to this, especially detectives. We had 5 detectives retire in a matter of a couple of months. And as you know, detectives, it's not like patrol where they have, I don't know, 15 officers or 20 officers in one watch. There are a couple of detective desks, because we have a desk that is in charge of autos. There's another desk that is in charge of burglary or robbery. There's a couple of desks that are only being managed by one detective, and that detective is responsible for getting the case, investigating it, following up, and going to court for it. So that's creating a huge backlog of cases, to where I have citizens call me. It's like, well, I haven't heard from the detective. What's going on with my file? It's been a month. It's like, yeah, it's going to be longer than that. I know that detectives were telling me that after the riots, the 14 days they were out there, they were backlogged a couple of months. And that's with working with more that they had. And now with working with one detective per desk, it's hard for them. It's hard. I know that talking to officers around the station and around the department, yeah, I'm getting the same response as you, Scott, that a lot of people are leaving early. A lot of people that were thinking that they were going to stay here for the long haul are probably going to do 20 years and they're going to leave. A lot of people have like maybe like a 5-year plan where they're even going to get out of the profession altogether. And a lot of people tell me that it's cyclical and that this is the same things that we saw back in the 60s and 1994 and all that stuff, but it feels different. It feels different now. For some reason, it's not going away. The support, especially from our local city officials, it's not there. So that's yes.
That's what I'm feeling.
And you'd be right, but you know something too, Scott, that's one of the reasons why we have these people talk to us during our CPAB meetings, Community Police Advisory Board meetings, where they are actually grilled as to things that they're doing in their council districts. Just a case in point, we just recently had Councilmember Blumenfield during a CPAB meeting, and we talked to him about the community, the cabin community that he's building behind the offices. So that we wanted to let him know how the community feels. Councilmember Blumenfield, in response, or actually before that meeting, actually formed a exploratory committee made up of various citizens and community members. And as a matter of fact, we're having a meeting upcoming to talk about the effects of the cabin community. Not that it's going to go away, but the council member needs to know what the community feels about it. If you can picture Councilmember Blumenfield's office over on Van Orn, next to his office is the public library. Next to that is West Valley LAPD, and next to that is a public park. And behind there are condos, and across the street are private homes. And so you can pretty well imagine the response that's come forth from the community with regard to that. So we're going to continue to have and hold our council members responsible, and we have got to do that. We can no longer afford to be silent. We can no longer afford to be silent and let things go by without responding to it, and letting council members know, let city attorneys know exactly how we feel about certain things. And so because if we don't have anybody to blame for but ourselves. Earlier, I had asked about public comments, which was item number 2 on our agenda. And the only public comment that I have has to do with the fact that February has been declared Heart Month, not just because it represents Valentine's Day, but also is to bring awareness to the leading cause of death for men and women in our country. Every year, there's more than 800,000 deaths due to heart disease, with over 375,000 of those due to sudden cardiac arrest. And for those of you who know, sudden cardiac arrest is a scenario where your heart suddenly stops beating, you stop breathing, and down you go. And so it was from a personal experience, and this is the reason I'm bringing this up. Earlier this week, I got a phone call from my brother's wife from North Carolina. My brother was found unresponsive, not breathing, and it happened to be on a day where there was a woman that was visiting my brother's home. And when they discovered my brother, this woman immediately jumped into action and performed CPR on my brother. Now, they don't know how long he was unresponsive and his heart not working, but she, in fact, saved my brother's life because she performed CPR until paramedics were able to arrive. She saved my brother's life. And 2 days ago, I got a phone call from his wife letting me know that my brother opened his eyes for the first time since that incident. So I say all of that to say how important it is for us to remember that even though we're all facing the COVID-19 scenario, there are other major causes of death in our country, and particularly cardiac arrest, where more women die of heart attacks than men do. More women die of heart attacks than men do. And the reason being is because of not being knowledgeable about what the symptoms are of heart attacks, particularly in women who have more than just chest pain and arm pain, but they have other symptoms indicative of heart attacks or pending heart attacks and certain cardiac arrest, jaw pain, back pain, neck pain. I can go on. So I say all that to say that once the veil has been lifted from COVID-19, I've gotten on strict assurance from the Red Cross that live classes will be started again to teach the public CPR. I know they were doing free CPR training classes at the West Valley LAPD, at Councilmember Bloomingfield's office, at the public library there in Reseda, and at the public library there on Nordhoff in Northridge. And so once the cloud blows away and we're able to do public meetings again, the classes will start up. But in the meantime, back at the ranch, everyone is advised to, if you don't know CPR, go online to redcross.com/testing/training, I should say, and learn or get an idea as to how to perform CPR. Because here's the big reason why. The big reason why is 4 out of every 5 sudden cardiac arrest events happen at home. And that being the case, it's critical that once a person suffers a cardiac arrest event, it's critical that that person receive CPR within 6 minutes. 6 minutes. That's the clock. You perform CPR until paramedics arrive. You don't stop until paramedics arrive, but CPR should be given within that 6 minute time frame, because after that 6 minutes, brain cells begin to die. And after that 6 minutes and brain cells begin to die, death sets in, and there's no coming back from that. So learn CPR, go online, take a class, a CPR class. They're relatively inexpensive. And then if you need certification, once, as I said, once the veil has been lifted from the COVID-19, classes will begin again at those various locations. They'll be posted on social media. I know Mickey attended one of the classes and that scenario. So let's see, COVID-19 right now. Yes.
Okay. I was just going to say, thank you for doing the CPR training. That helped me learn how to do something that my wife knew because she works in a school. She saved the life of our son. It isn't just old people.
Right.
My son was drowning. And thank God we were able to get him out of the bottom of the jacuzzi. His hand got stuck in the drain.
Wow.
And without the CPR, he, who knows? If he had survived, he might have had loss of his brain activity if it had taken very long, but she knew what she was doing. So it isn't just old people. It isn't just heart attacks. It's everybody.
Right, absolutely. Let's see. Thank you for that, Scott. So I was begin to talk about COVID-19. Everyone should know right now that they are opening up a COVID-19 vaccination place at Pierce College. And even though they don't have the vaccines in right now, they will hopefully be able to get those in next week to begin vaccination with appointments. In Lake Balboa, there are 5,046 positive cases of COVID in Lake Balboa, 10,800 positive cases in Reseda, and 3,104 cases in Encino, and in Tarzana, 3,088 positive cases of COVID. The numbers are going down, the hospitalizations are going down. If you haven't had a vaccination, again, it's a personal choice, but I encourage you to seriously consider getting vaccinated, because that's what's going to help establish the herd immunity. Officer Fernandez, do you have your hand up?
Yes, James. Sorry. On the lines of COVID, I'm trying to work on a public announcement. Just a heads up, and if you can start spreading the word for me, there is a possible fraudulent vendor offering COVID testing, and he's been setting up by the Vallarta on Woodley and Victory. I don't know if you've seen his tent.
Yes.
It might be fraudulent. I don't want to say 100% it is, but most likely it is. He's asking for people's ID and social security number to fill out the form. So I don't know if it's some type of identity theft. He is not charging, so we can't even ask him for any type of licenses or anything like that. So we are working on it right now. with the city attorney and our commercial crimes unit to see how we can combat this. But by him setting up at the Vallarta, I think he's targeting a vulnerable community there. You know, people that don't have that accessibility to the tests. They see the tent and they just go to it. So just a heads up on that.
Right, right. And testing is still ongoing. You know, aside from vaccination, testing is still ongoing. I know that there was a free COVID-19 test site at the dog park on Victory and White Oak. And so these pop-up test sites are continuing to go on. Does anyone else have any questions or comments they'd like to make before we adjourn our meeting?
I would like to say something, just leaving a good note on my end. West Valley, with everything that we do have, did come in #1 in crime reduction for the whole department. That's for the 21 regional divisions. So we're #1 right now, which is really good. So and that goes to the patrol officers, you know, that extra patrol that we always ask them to do, and all that good stuff.
Well, that's great news. And you know, I'd like to think that part of that responsibility, or part of that kudos also involves the efforts that are put forth from the volunteer community of the patrol.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely.
Very, very good. But which leads me to say, as a plug, shameful plug, anyone that's interested in joining the community volunteer patrol, or getting more information about it, or even being a part of a ride along to see what it's like, please either get in touch with me or Officer McKeegan at 39716. His email 39716@lapd.online, and he'd be more than happy to give you all the information to provide that for you. The community patrol really, really makes a difference. People see us out there as we're on patrol, and it really makes a difference. And so we've been continuing this patrol in spite of COVID. We've been continuing this patrol since June. So it's not anything that we really stopped doing. We knew what we were signing up for, so to speak, when we decided to volunteer for this. But we knew that when people saw us, they would realize that it was something worthwhile. We do patrol in single cars. If anyone has a question about that, right now we patrol in single cars. All of the members of the Volunteer Patrol A team have been vaccinated. We all have both vaccinations for COVID-19. We still patrol in single units so that we can get that visibility out there. But it's something that we enjoy, and it's going to continue to happen, particularly now. If there are no more questions.
Excuse me, James.
Yes.
This is Ruth. Was the new senior lead officer for Lake Balboa on before I got on the meeting? Gary asked the question in the chat and it was never answered.
I did. I told him no. Sam wasn't on, was he, Hugo?
No, I'm sorry.
Okay.
He wasn't on. He was supposed to. He's off today, but he was gonna join us. I don't know if he had something come up.
Okay, thank you.
Right.
Sam who? What's Sam's last name?
Sam Park.
Park, okay.
I'll go ahead.
Same
and
number
his,
that Isla had?
Yeah, so I'll go ahead and put his email on the chat.
Okay, great.
And Sam has taken over for the spot. Jeremy, if you can post that basic car map again.
Give me just a moment.
Sure.
It's for Isla Smith.
No, she's still there, but she hasn't. She's on right now to another division right now.
Yes, Officer Smith is still unknown to the other unit. Unknown when or if she's coming back. We're hoping that she does come back, and because we miss her, but as of right now, we don't have any word on that.
Great.
Okay.
Okay.
That's showing it.
Yeah, you go. You see the basic car area? Scott, you see that also is in the upper right area of that map?
Well, I was thinking more in the purple areas where I live.
Yeah, that's Officer Smith. But right now, I suppose that Officer Park will, as Hugo did, as Officer Fuentes did, be responsible for the entire Lake Balboa area. Is that right, Officer Fuentes?
Yes, he is, but we're all chipping in. So I know I'm still chipping in on a couple of issues of Officer Smith's area. So if you have any questions for anything, you can still email me. Officer Park is still new to the division, so I'm kind of helping him out. Since I'm more familiar with it and I've been dealing with it, you can email me. I don't mind.
Fantastic. Thank you for that. Jeremy, thank you for posting that.
Thank you.
All right. So if there are no further questions, the time is now 11:30. I'd like to thank everyone again for attending this meeting, this joint meeting between the Neighborhood Council and the Health and Public Safety Committee. I want to thank you for attending and declare this meeting adjourned. Thank you very much. Have a great day, everybody.
Thank you for having me.
You're welcome. Thank you.
Thank you for your work.
Thank you, sir. Appreciate it.
Thank you, James.
You're welcome. Thanks, everyone.
Bye,
Thank
James.
you.